What's up, everybody? Welcome back to TapouT Radio. Evan Showman, my girl Crooklyn, and on the air. Right now, we have UFC superstar, name and lights, Chris Clements. Chris, I know you're cutting weight, but how you feeling right now, man?
Actually, I'm feeling pretty good. I haven't had to do any of the crazy cutting. I'm just a little hungry right now, but after we get done this interview, I'm going to go get a quick workout in, and then that's when the cutting will actually start. That's when I'll start feeling like crap, but I'm actually a lot lighter than normally. Normally, I'd cut 18 pounds between today and weigh-in time, and now I got to do like 10 or 12, so I'm pretty happy that way.
I mean, do you notice it is a big difference? You know, I've never had to cut weight or anything like that. And in fact, if I play a basketball game and I don't drink Gatorade, I have a migraine. So, you know, that's just me. But you guys are all accustomed to this now. So does even a pound seem to make a big difference for you guys?
It all hurts. Like, you're essentially basically killing yourself slowly. So it doesn't matter if you're cutting 10 pounds or 20 pounds. You know, it all hurts, but it's just a matter of hurt you have to go through. Most I ever did, I did 28 pounds one time, and I would have cried if I had enough water to make a tear at that time. So, you know, I think it's the worst thing about fighting is cutting weight.
It really and that's what I try to tell people all the time. It's gotta suck for you guys to train for these long camps, do all this, kill yourself. While you're killing yourself, you're dealing with idiots in the media giving you radio interviews 48 hours before your fight. Stuff like that. And it's not easy, you know. There's a lot that goes into this whole thing. So I imagine that by the time the cage door closes, you're just happy to be in there.
Yeah, like the fight's the easiest part of the whole thing. You know, the fight's just when you just react and you go in there and you try and have fun and you know you try and do what you're trained to do. The training is the torture and you know the dieting and the weight cuts. My opinion is the worst part of it. But you know, and the fight's pretty much the best part. Getting your hand raised at the end is you know the most incredible thing ever. Nothing feels better than getting your hand raised after all that work. So.
Well, you kind of cut a lot of weight here. What is your usual walking around weight, and what are you at right now?
Well, right now I'm about 180. But my normal walking around weight in between fights, if I'm not training for a fight, is somewhere around 200 pounds. I've gone up to 210, 215. I've stayed as low as 195, but I never basically walk under 195.
That's just a beast. I mean, but it's funny because everyone in the division, everyone's doing the same thing, and you could kind of make an argument that you're a smaller welterweight.
Yeah, I do think I am a smaller welterweight. I actually thought about making the cut to 155. I think I could do it. It would be like a 24/7 job all year round. That's the only thing. I would never be able to, you know, have a beer here or there, or have a cheeseburger or pizza more than like maybe one cheat day a week. You know, that's not much living. So, yeah, I think my power kind of makes up for it. I mean, it's a height difference. Some of these welterweights now is like 6'3", 6'4", and you know, as me being a striker, the reach advantage, you know, against a guy like that, you know, takes away my strength quite a bit. So.
All right, so you are fighting Keith Wisniewski.
Yeah,
he's coming off a loss to Josh Neer. You're coming off a win from against Rich Clementi. So what do you think of this fight here? Like, you guys, everything cool between you two? I mean, it doesn't, you know, usually fights that aren't the main event aren't like the big beef fights or anything like that. So everything copacetic between the two of you?
Yeah, I've never met him. You know, from what I've heard about him, he seems like a pretty nice guy. I don't know anything about him in a negative sense. You know, I know his record and what he's good at and what I don't think he's good at. But as far as him as a person, I got no beef with him. And you know, I'm a pretty friendly guy. I remember the second round when I was fighting Rich Clementi, I gave him a little tap on the shoulder and told him, "You're the best, buddy." Right in the middle of the fight, I kind of like to be friendly with a guy when I'm fighting him. It's not a grudge match for me. I fight my best when I'm calm and kind of happy in there, and I just make it a sport, and that's when I have most fun. And when I have fun, that's when I perform my best. So.
You know, it's interesting you say that because last week, you know, that we saw someone in the pay-per-view shove a guy over. You know, he has since apologized, of course, but you know, in the fight, and people get up in arms about it, and other guys are like, "This is fighting; it's not Parcheesi." But then we hear other guys go, "This is a sport that is fighting, but it's still a sport." I mean, your mentality going into it, is it a fight? Is it a sport? Is it work? I mean, what's your what's your mental take on the sport of fighting?
Mine is it's a sport. I don't go in there and when I punch somebody, I punch them to hurt them, but I don't go in there hoping to hurt my opponent. In a sense that they're like, I want to knock him out, but I don't want to inflict like any kind of major damage on him where he's, something's wrong with him. He can wake up later and be just fine. But it's a complete sport to me. I don't have any grudges or anger. It's just my job, And like you said, you are the best. It's a sport that that is fighting.
And now it is a sport, and unfortunately, in this sport, we have judges. We have judges. We have referees. Referees aren't as bad as the judges. Does that ever weigh, heavily in your mind? Like, okay, look, I'm going to the UFC. I'm fighting in the UFC here against Wisniewski. First timer. The last thing I want to do is let a fight go to the judges. I have to finish this thing. I have to make an impression on the brass. I mean, is that, I don't want to say pressure, but is that kind of in the back of your mind? Like, I gotta make this all about me. I can't let anyone else be in charge of the outcome of this fight.
I've never really thought about the judges, only because in my whole career I've never seen the judges' decision. I've never been to a decision my whole career. Every loss I've had was a submission, and except for one bad stoppage due to a referee, not a judge, against Roy Markham. But all my wins come by knockout. I've never been to a decision, so I've never really sat back and thought about it. But as far as keeping it all about me, that's how I plan on the fight going. I just want to go in there and showcase my skills, and I want to show the UFC that they've been missing out on me, actually. And now they, I want to make them know that I made the right decision, and show the world what I got. I don't, I'm 36 years old. I don't have a 10-year career ahead of me to sit in the UFC and slowly build myself up. I want to go in there and make a statement and, make a big step.
Awesome. I got to tell you, what's funny is when you're on Wikipedia and you click on, you're on your profile and you click on where it says you're scheduled to fight Wisniewski, takes you to Wisniewski's page, right? Then on Wisniewski's page, when you click on your name, Chris Clements, it takes you to being the animation director for The Simpsons. So congratulations on your dual career.
Well, I'm going to have to go collect some royalties on that one.
Right? Apparently, the second episode you directed, the Haw Hawed couple, was nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award in 2007 for Outstanding Animated Program. Congratulations, Chris Clements.
Well, thank you.
Wow, I'm really enjoying that. I don't understand how that happens, so I don't know. There you go. But anyway, back to MMA. You're fighting Wisniewski, and I know you said, you heard he's a nice guy and all that, but I mean, have you studied tape or anything on him? Weaknesses, strengths, or did you say, screw it? I'm going in, and all I care about is the Clements, the Simpsons writer game plan, as opposed to what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I looked at a couple tapes when I first found out who I was fighting, just to check him out, see what he's like. I watched those tapes like the first week or so of my camp just to get an idea what I wanted this guy to size my camp around. I never looked at the tapes again. I see him as a lot the same as Clemente. Really big. He has an extensive record, a lot of experience. Very few TKOs or knockouts on his record. Most of his wins by submission. I see him kind of the exact same opponent as Clemente, just a little bit taller. So, I don't expect anybody to stand up with me when I fight. I prepare for everybody to take me down. I think I'm one of the most dangerous strikers in the world in MMA. So, I don't see too many guys choosing to stand up with me. So I just prepare for every fight I'm going into. I figure the guy's going to try and take me down, and my plan is not to let that happen, and make him have a reason why he wants to take me down. So.
Everybody always says, you prepare for the worst, and the only the best can happen. Do you kind of take that same approach? Like, you know what? I'm going to go into this fight mentally thinking that my opponent is going to try and lay and pray me and eke out a lousy decision with these lousy judges in this lousy arena. Like, do you kind of visualize it like, so I have to be the one to make that not happen?
Yeah, that's exactly pretty much how I look at this fight happening. I think his best way to have a chance to win would be a decision by, holding me down and grinding me out. Just not letting me move. I don't want that to happen. I fight to finish fights. I always fight. Like I said, every one of my wins is from a TKO, or just because that's how I do it. I go for it. I just try and win by my hand stopping the fight. So I'm hoping for the fans' sake that he's not planning on doing that. But I know once I lay my hands on him, it's not going to have any choice but to try and take me down. And I guess it's my job to keep it on the feet and knock him up before he has a chance to put me down.
Are you gonna kind of do the Kenny Florian thing afterwards? If you win the fight by knockout or submission, go, I finished fights. Who wants to see fights finished here in the UFC? And then call out Ben Henderson. I mean, call out GSP or Carlos Condit, possibly Nick Diaz.
Nah, I think when Joe Rogan comes up to me, I might panic asking for his autograph. Actually, I've been such a fan of the sport for so long; it's gonna be like such a shock for me just to be in there and see all these people I've been watching on TV. So, I don't think I'll have the calmness to even think to say anything like Kenny Florian did.
Well, I mean, you can show a little fandom. There's not a problem with that. I mean, you could say, hey, Joe Rogan, how you're gonna scream in the microphone, how did you feel in your first fight? Welcome to the UFC and all that. You could be like, dude, sign my shirt, sign my picture, here's this, here's that. Like, you know what I mean? No one's gonna fault you, and I think people will fall in love with you more than than if you didn't. If you're like, whatever, I'm cool. I'm Chris Clements. Hello, I know Jason Chambers.
I don't think I'll be playing it cool whatsoever.
Well, do you think you'll have octagon jitters? Are you worried about that? A lot of people say, they're not worried about their debut, and then they go in there and the bright lights, and they see, Goldie and Rogan calling the fight. They see Bruce Buffer, and suddenly they're like, oh, shit, like, this is a big deal. I mean, it's different. You're 36 years old, you're a grown man.
Yeah, there's, people have been asking about the jitters ever since every interview I've done pretty much have been asked about it. And it is the UFC, and it's, the big show, and it's, obviously it puts a little bit more pressure on you. But in my mind, the way I look at it is, I was more nervous going into my Clemente fight than I am going into my Wininski fight in the UFC, because I knew if I lost my Clemente fight or any fight before that during my win streak, that I was never going to get to live my dream of fighting in the UFC. That made me more nervous. My whole goal in fighting was to fight in UFC, and now I've made it there. So now I can walk into that ring and I can just be like, I'm living my dream. This is my goal, and I accomplished it. And anything that happens after this point is a bonus. It's not, I don't have to stress out about, it's the UFC, it's the UFC. My goal was to get to the UFC, and I'm there. And I can just say, now I'm here, I can enjoy it, and I can have fun, I can let loose. And, if I win, so be it, great. That's, it's icing on the cake. And if I lost, I have to keep myself in mind that I accomplished my goal. I know, I had a lot of obstacles in front of me. So that's the way I'm trying to look at it, and try to keep the jitters to the side that way, and, put it at more of an excitement than a nervous thing. So.
Right. Okay. So just channeling your energy.
Yeah.
All right. I'll buy it.
Yeah. Like I said, I can make it sound real good like that, but it all depends on what happens once you get out there. So every fighter,
right.
We're all nervous before every fight. It doesn't matter, if it's in your very first fight in a small little show, or if it's in the UFC, you're always nervous before that fight. But I have to treat it the same as any other fight.
Well,
and I don't know what it's like. I can't say what it's going to be like because I've never done it before. So
we have guys that come on all the time. It doesn't matter if they're fighting in Podunk, Iowa, or the O2 Arena. There, some guys like Paul Buentello and Brandon Vera have all come on the show and been like, they throw up every single time before they fight. They like in the locker room, puking their guts out. That's just what they've always done. Are you like? Is that your? Are you a puker? Like, do you just like I gotta throw up and get this done with so I can go out there and fight?
No, I've never puked or got that nervous. I shake my head at myself and I say, what the hell did I get myself into, and why did I do this to myself again? And that kind of thing runs through your mind real briefly. Then, I'm more nervous from the time that my hands get taped to the time that I'm ready, my walkout song starts, than I am after anything after that. As soon as my walkout song starts, then it's just showtime, and I become, the menace, and then I'm ready to go. It's that small window between getting my hands taped and the warm up. That's when you're nervous. I've never gone as far as throwing up, but
I would enjoy seeing that if you threw up on Stitch while he was taping you up or something like that. I mean, that'd be whatever. I mean, that'd be a new one. That'd be interesting to see. So,
yeah.
So, I want to go back to, I had mentioned Jason Chambers. Clearly, he's one of the better, he's the best looking man in all of sports today. How is it having him being like the big boss man running the show?
Tomorrow morning is the first time I'm actually going to get to meet Jason in person. We've only had phone conversations since the time he started managing me and talking, but, he's a real cool guy, and he's a straight shooter. As soon as I talked to him on the phone, after I beat Clements, I had a couple different agents call me, and some guys are trying to sweet-talk me, and other guys are trying to talk themselves up and stuff, and Jason just called me up, and he's like, yeah, I could talk to, Joe Silva for you, and I could see what he has to say, and I just let you know. He just kept it simple, and, everything's been great ever since. He's easy to work with. He makes sense when he talks. He was a fighter himself, so he can understand a little bit what fighters are thinking. He understands the fight game, so it's easy to trust a manager like that to help pick your fights when he's fought himself, so he understands, the fight games. So I'm pretty happy to be a part of his team now and working with him, and I'm excited to see what the future holds with us. So.
Yeah, I mean,
but he's a pretty good-looking guy. I can't wait meet my wife tomorrow. So.
Yeah, maybe you should hold her. You just keep her in a different room. I mean, Jason Chambers, he's a charmer. He's a charmer.
Yeah, he's got little twins at home. I'll just keep bringing them up. I just had a baby 2 weeks ago. So.
Well, he's been on national television. He's fought. Under the bright lights. He was supposed to fight in the UFC. Is it interesting to see, like, this is a manager that's not in it for himself, because a lot of these managers are just the biggest douchebags, and that all they're into is getting their name out there and their client, and they all want to live this mafioso style, but like, what a bunch of goofballs, you know what I mean? So what are you thinking? Like, like I said, you got Chambers, someone who's kind of on a different level than most managers in the fight game.
Yeah. Like I said, I've only known the guy since December, and it's only through phone conversations, but, that's the way it should be. I have a hard time. I'm a manager, too. Like, I have a stable of guys that I train and I manage at my own gym, with Hammond and Stout and those guys at our gym. So I understand a little bit, what it's like to, be a manager and work with fighters and keep the fighters' interest at heart. And it's easy for me to do it because I'm a fighter too. And I have a lot of problem with fighters having managers who don't know the fighter, like don't really know his skill set. Because how are they supposed to judge who the guy should fight and have the fighter's best interest in her if they don't know who he is? So that's kind of why I'm excited to meet Jason this weekend and get to know him more on a personal level instead of just on phone conversations. And just gonna see where things go from here.
All right, well, Jason's awesome. You're awesome, and we wish you luck this weekend against Keith Wisniewski in Atlanta, Georgia. Awesome.
Yeah, it's supposed to be hot, man. What's going on? It's been raining the whole time I've been here. I packed 3 pairs of shorts. I ain't got to wear one yet.
Man, I was gonna say, hey, couldn't get your debut in Abu Dhabi, huh? Had to be in Georgia.
Yeah.
So we give people 60 seconds, how we did it before with you. You shout out whoever you want, blah, blah, blah. But first thing, we need you to give a shout out to our man Jay Norton in the chat, who is supporting you big time in there right now.
Jay Norton.
Jay
He's
Norton.
in there right now.
He's in there right now.
Yeah.
In our chat.
No. Big shout out to Jay Norton out there. She had stopped in and said hello. And where's Crooklyn at? I was checking that girl's Twitter site out. She got over 10,000 followers on there. Sam Stout's only got 6,000. She's beating his ass.
Right? A freaking radio chick.
She got 10,000 followers on Twitter. Tell her to give me a shout out. I need to hook up. I'm hurting. I'm a hurting unit. I'm like the second lowest ranked guy. The only guy that I'm actually beating on Twitter's followers for the whole UFC card is Wisniewski. So.
I tell you what, you give me a follow back, and I'll definitely hook you up.
All right.
See, that's how she does it. She gets you that way.
Yeah. That's fair trade.
I think you probably have more followers than Aaron Riley, because he
I got like 500.
Okay, Aaron Riley has more than you. So we're going to give you 60 seconds now to shout out whoever you want. Tell the fans your Twitter address, Facebook, all that stuff. So go ahead.
You can just Facebook me. Yeah, you can Facebook me, Chris Clements. You can't add me as a friend yet. I actually have my fan site starting up tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter, Manage Clements. And I got a big shout out to Jason Chambers, Apex Sports Agency, for hooking me up, and all my guys back at Team Tompkins Adrenaline Training Center. That's about all.
That's it.
My wife is not going to hear this, though, but
yeah, she knows you love her. She knows you love her. She knows you care about her.
And my baby girl. Right. I've had a baby girl 6 weeks ago. So.
Well, congratulations! How much did she weigh?
Thank you. She was 5 pounds 11 ounces.
Oh, her walking around weight's a little smaller than yours.
Yeah, a lot smaller. I'm gonna spread out more than like double her.
Well, see, you should have told us at the beginning of the show, so I could have asked you the questions everyone wants to hear, like, is having a daughter a new motivation for you? Stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. It's hard when you it's really hard to say goodbye to a newborn baby who's 5 weeks old, and you're thinking you're leaving for 5 days, and she's not going to remember your voice when you come back. Or
she will. She will.
I'm going to punch him in the face real hard for that one. Stuff like that.
Okay. All right, Chris. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. Punch someone in the face for your baby girl. Keith Wisniewski versus Chris Clements this weekend. Thanks for coming on the show, man. We appreciate it. Good luck with the cut and the fight.
And
yes, sir. Don't go anywhere, guys. We will have Renato Laranja on next, so it's going to get crazy up in here.